Hello, one and all, and welcome to the podcast we call the Fantastival with myself, Stephen Spaum, in the podcast where I invite my guests to come on and talk to me all about their musical taste, their memories, their experiences, and they get to collate their fantasy festivals, which I have christened Fantastivals. I hope everyone is well, and we are now in October, which is very apt for this very episode that we'll come on to very shortly. This year is flying by so fast. And before we start this one, just want to shout out Amelia Coburn, who was my guest in the last episode for 173. If you haven't listened to that episode, please go back and do so, and go and check out her debut album, Between the Moon and the Milkman. A great artist, great album. That went in and charted at 55 in the official album chart. So well done to Amelia for that earlier in the year, and that was a really enjoyable episode. So that was 173. It's time to introduce the guests on 174. And this week, I'm delighted to introduce not one, but two members from one of my very favourite bands in the world, from October Drift. Ladies and gentlemen, I have for you this week, it's Dan Young and Chris Holmes.
Hello. You gave us a really great big intro there, and I feel like just the double hello was a bit anticlimactic from us. I'm really sorry about that, Stephen.
Always love the double hello. That's never a problem. I'm so looking forward to having you both on the podcast. Really looking forward to finding out about the new album, about your future plans. But before we do, I always like to check in with my guests, make sure they're doing well from a mental health perspective. It's really important we talk about it, and I'm well aware you guys are out on the road more often than not. So I'll start with you first, Dan. Generally, mate, just how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I've probably not eaten the best over the last few days, though, so I feel like I'm constantly full. But, yeah, good. I think weirdly this run, because we've been doing obviously the instores are far away from each other, the drives have been pretty brutal on these, haven't they? And compared to a normal UK tour. So I feel like I'm maybe more tired than I am when we're lobbing ourselves around the stage. Oh, just a bit of clarity, we're doing like a stripped back acoustic instores. People might not know, but we normally jump around loads on stage, and for these we're sitting down. So you'd expect us to be less tired, but actually probably more, which is weird. But other than that, I'm good.
Great insight to the touring life. And what about yourself, Chris? How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's nice. This kind of week, I think, is a lot less stressful than the previous weeks leading up to an album release. This is like one of the most chilled, relaxed tours that I think we've been on, and it's because we just rock up with a few acoustic guitars, have nothing to worry about, no stresses or anything with the show. You turn up and yeah, just no pressures, no nothing. So I think in terms of this week in touring, this has just been a breeze. This has been lovely.
And you get out there, right? You get to go and meet the fans, the people who are buying the album and supporting you. It must be a lovely experience.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice because obviously our live show is quite intense, and it is quite even though we always try and get connection with the fans. That is our key thing of our live show, whether we're doing things in in-stores or whether we're playing a full-blown in-your-face set. But it's a really different connection at these as to what we do get when we are kind of lobbing ourselves around the stage. It's really nice because our live set doesn't lend itself to more of a jokey, personable interaction. It's a totally different type of connection. Whereas these, we just sit there and chat to people.
Yeah, it's relaxing. You don't feel like if you make a mistake, it's as much of a big deal, which is probably weird because you're more isolated. But I don't know. I guess it's not really, really loud coming through a PA system when you hit a wrong note on a guitar or miss a drum beat or something. Yeah, so it's pretty nice.
Sounds like you're having a great time, and obviously by the time this goes out, those would have been done, and looking forward to seeing where you guys chart. That we'll come on to shortly. So let me take you gents back to when you were younger. I'll ask you first, Dan. What do you remember about kind of your earliest musical memories?
Someone asked me what the first thing I bought was, and it was actually Teenage Dirtbag by Wheatus on tape. I remember that really clearly, and just playing that, which is probably not the coolest record of all time, but it's pretty cool. I like it. It's still a good song. And then I think from there, my parents used to own a surf shop, and there was a guy who was a bit older than me, and he was really into classic rock. Well, kind of, Guns N' Roses and Iron Maiden and all of that sort of heavy stuff. and he got me into that. So I used to listen to that for a few years, and then I don't really know how. Oh, I guess there was a record shop in town, and we used to go there from like our sixth form college years, and basically just spend all the time in that shop. And I think that was where like my music really developed into kind of what it is now. Because that guy, I mean, Phil, the guy who owned it, had like impeccable record taste. We were talking about it the other day. He was like, yeah, real left field music taste. And I think maybe mine wasn't quite as left field, but I would take like elements of, he'd show a bunch of bands and there'd be like 10 different acts that were, 9 of them were like absolutely nuts. And then one of them would fit like just backwards of the left field stuff. And then I'd get into it. Yeah. And he like introduced us to the National, Horrors,
Echo and the Bunnymen.
Echo and the Bunnymen. Yeah, loads of bands. So yeah, not just new bands.
And when did you first pick up a guitar then, Dan? Was it around that time?
I bugged my parents for years to learn the guitar, and they basically, I've always like been, is the word indecisive? Maybe indecisive. And I did like tennis for a bit. Then we did both me and Chris did taekwondo for years, and then I wanted to, I don't know, I'd be like, decide I wanted to do some other sport, and then I think my parents thought it would be like a flash in the pan, and then I bugged them, and then they finally let me play, and actually, yeah, I really enjoyed it and stuck to it. And that was, I don't know, probably 11 years old, so yeah, a long time ago.
Wow, and still going strong. That's brilliant. And what about you, Chris? What do you remember, I guess, from your kind of earliest musical memories?
So I got into playing the drums because my uncle was a drummer. He played the drums, and I remember years and years ago, my parents used to have this like warehouse. My parents and grandparents owned a small business together, and they had this warehouse. And I remember my uncle having his drums set up in the warehouse. I mean, I must have only been, I don't know, maybe around 4 years old, and I remember him sitting down on the drums and just beating the hell out of this drum kit, and I remember just loving it. And then I wanted to learn the drums. I think my parents thought I was probably too young for a while. And then eventually, I think I was 8, maybe. I bugged them so much that they were like, all right, let's buy them a cheap drum kit from somewhere. And yeah, just haven't really stopped. But one of the interesting things is, we were talking about this the other day, like, I don't think I've got any better on my instrument since I was about 16. like genuinely, like, I think I've peaked at 16, like,
I suppose the focus changes, doesn't it?
That's it, yeah.
When you're playing your music to write songs rather than to practice your instrument.
That's it, yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm consistently average at the drums. but I'm definitely average. But yeah, like, I think something about just, I don't know, that, like, when you hear a drum kit as a young kid, particularly in like a warehouse, it's really, really like intense and really loud, and you're like, whoa. And I just remember, just it really sticking with me.
I mean, I was going to say that you would, so Chris, like, we've all been friends since we were, me and Chris knew each other from nursery, so for absolutely years. But I remember I'd come round yours, and your drum kit was in your room, and then you'd just be like, right, do you want to we play drums? And then you'd stand like next to, like, I mean, on the stage now with all the earplugs, and you'd stand next to Chris, and he'd just hammer the drums. And I remember I'd be like sort of flinching away, like, as he's playing the drums. Yeah, it was good.
Oh, good times. I'm trying to think of what my earliest like artist that I really got into on my own, because like when you're young, you're so influenced by your parents' music taste or by just whatever's on the radio or anything like that. But I think the first CD I bought off myself was from Rooster Records in Taunton, which was before Black Cat Records, and it was Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusion 1. And that was the first and I bought it on CD. And I remember listening to that album so much, like an insane amount. And then that really started me down a road of loving those kind of like 70s and 80s rock bands, like all of those ones everyone knows, Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, all those kind of bands. And yeah, I basically just bought a 1970s, 1980s CD collection and probably just had like any band from that era on CD. So yeah, I had like the most dad rock CD collection you could imagine as a kind of 13-year-old.
I feel like everyone's starting out playing well, maybe not everyone, but like when you start playing instruments like the guitar or the drums or something, you kind of have to go through that period of listening to like
the dad rock.
Yeah, but and also because those people were so good on their instruments, and like the music was kind of it was virtuoso, wasn't it? It was like watching people do guitar solos and drum solos and stuff. So that was kind of a lot of what the sound was, like being really good on your instrument. So I think it's good for anyone who's starting out to kind of dabble with that stuff before they maybe find their like actual musical taste later.
Yeah, it's a great point there, Dan. And I guess, Chris, not only do you play drums, you also sing. And I think there's been a few TikTok and YouTubes where it says the best singer in October Drift is the drummer, and experiences of where you're backing Kiran. I guess, has the singing always been there, something you've always focused on?
I don't know.
Well, you had a band before us, didn't you, where you were the singing drummer?
I was the singing drummer in a band when I was 13. And I think the singing is something that it's not something I've ever practiced, wanted to do or anything, but I think for whatever reason, I'm just naturally got okay at singing. And I think out of almost, because it was another string to our bow, it's something that over time I've done a lot more than I ever expected. I enjoy it and embrace it more now than I did. And particularly on doing what we're doing at the moment on like an instore tour, like I love it. I love being able to sing. Sometimes when I'm hitting the shit out of the drums and I'm sweating and gasping for air, I wish, God, I don't want to sing this next bloody chorus. And as well, because mine and Kiran's voices complement each other quite well, because he's got this kind of rich baritone voice and my voice sits a lot higher. So a lot of the time in the chorus, I'm just singing a full octave on top of what he's singing. So it is really towards the edge of my singing capabilities. Everything you see on the stage, I'm with both my drumming and my singing are right at the edge of my ability. Like I'm pushing 99% for pretty much the whole show, just hoping it's not going to fall apart. Which in a way, I feel like that's what maybe good guitar music does. Like my favorite bands as well. It is like we always listen to like Radiohead, for example. You can tell that there's what makes Radiohead so brilliant is that like at any moment it feels like it could fall apart, like in the best way possible. Like it feels like particularly what's the drummer called again?
Phil
Selway. Particularly with Phil Selway, it feels like his drumming is right on the edge in a really, really good way. I think it provides a bit of excitement to guitar bands. So yeah, I mean, it's an advert for anyone to come see us on tour anyway, just to see if it falls apart. If it completely falls apart.
No, it's all good. I was just going to say, when we were really young and we first started out, there was occasional times that it did fall apart, wasn't there?
Yeah,
and we coined it rage quitting, where we'd like 16-year-old us would all like something would happen and we'd just completely lose it and just walk off the stage.
That happened a few times.
Yeah. Luckily, that hasn't happened for about 10 years. So, well, no, way longer.
Although you do walk off the stage, right? But walk into the audience, which I guess is a big part of your live show that I was going to come on to later, but I guess that probably fits in quite well. Like when I was on YouTube last night looking at a few bits, Dan, I saw you go into the crowd in the most recent tour and just rock like you having the time of your life there.
Yeah. We've started. I used to do it loads when we played to no one. Because it always felt like you were kind of breaking that fourth wall, and you could come out and like Kiran would come out and sing stuff, and then I would come out and jump around, and it seemed to really help people connect. But I think as we got busier and busier shows, then we kind of regimented it a little bit. Kiran would come out, but then recently I've decided to do it again. I was worried I was trying to take away from like Kiran being a front man, but I think now it's kind of, I don't know, it feels like it's all right again.
Great stuff. So talking to Kiran, he was my guest back in episode 85. That was back in March 2022, and that was on the announcement of the release of the second album, I Don't Belong Anywhere. So that was 2.5 years ago. I think it's fair to say in those 2.5 years, October Drift has gone from strength to strength. Brilliant second album, and it's great to see you've just released your third album, Blame the Young, that has just recently come out. So I guess, gents, tell us about the album. I think from what I can see from Facebook, it was like an 18-month process from start to releasing it. So tell us about the album, and I guess the process that you've gone through to get that album out.
So we went into a recording. Well, no, we didn't go into a recording studio. We went to an Airbnb about 18 months ago, and it was on Somerset Levels, and it was this lovely old like barn conversion. And we basically said to the lady who owned it, "Look, we want to come and turn your Airbnb into a recording studio for a week. Come and do whatever you want." So we went there with 15 songs that had been demoed to within an inch of their lives. Went in there and just in a week just blasted them all out and recorded probably about 80%, 90% of the record there, didn't we?
Yeah, we got all good, basically everything.
So that was 18 months ago. So that was early 2023. So for us, it's really strange because 90% of this record, 90% of this record was finished 18 months ago for us. From there, we then took it to, so our live engineer is a really good studio engineer as well. So we took it to his studio and he listened to all the songs and added, we like to say, made the record a lot cooler.
Yeah, he definitely called it up, didn't he?
He definitely called it up. He made it, he stopped us being I don't know. I think we toe the line very, very, we tightrope between total stadium rock and a cool indie guitar band. And I think sometimes we need someone to pull us back across the line into cool indie guitar band. And I think James, our live engineer, did that really, really successfully. So we went and spent some time at his studio, basically looked at each track. And then then the record was given to a guy called Paul Gregory, who's in an amazing band called Lanterns on the Lake. And he mixed the whole record. He also added a load of ideas in terms of the production of the record. And that then took us to probably the end of 23. And then so it's been done, finished, mixed, mastered since early this year, hasn't it?
Yeah. I think also with James, when we went there, James is actually in a really cool band too called Indoor Pets. But when we went there, we had a sound from what basically the Airbnb was like, just somehow sounded amazing, didn't it? It was like
really good.
A lot of wood, and I think like the just the reflections of the room and stuff really kind of started to sound off. But I feel like James pulled that together, and on that first, I think we first worked on Tyrannosaurus Wreck, didn't we?
And Blame the Young.
And I think, yeah, just something about working with him and adding little tweaks and stuff, and he put it through all of his like cool studio gear, and I think it just glued together maybe what the sound of the record was, and then it was like a blueprint for the rest of the tracks. He really helped.
It's a great album, gents. I commend you on it. It's fantastic. I've got my own favourites off the album. Do you have a favourite track off the album?
I think my favourite is I'm Not Running Anymore, which is weird because every night we've played it on this instore, and the guys have told the story that it was originally called The One That Dan Hates. That was the name of the demo. And I think it was because like the way that, so Kiran bought the chords and the like, you know, the kind of scratchings of the lyrics, and I think that the way it was like the bounciness of the chords, and like it was open chords and it felt bouncy, and the way it was sung, it just didn't sound like an October Drift song, and I think you could see that it could be, and maybe I just wrote it off straight away, and sometimes it can be a bit moody, like if I don't like
self-confessed moodiness. Brilliant.
Yeah, I just get in my own head and I'm like, well, this is just rubbish, this is just never going to be an October Drift song, and then now it's my favourite one on the album. So yeah, that says a lot about me.
I love it. And what about you, Chris? Do you have a favourite from the album?
Mine depends on, I think, what mood I'm in, but I think in general, probably two. I have two contrasts. One is Wallflower, and I think the other one's Don't Care. So yeah, probably the most serene song on the record and the most intense, which maybe says something about my personality as well.
That one's getting a load of love, isn't it? Don't Care.
Yeah, but
yeah,
cool. I think they're my favourite. I think by the time we've released a record, I'm normally really tired and bored of the singles that have been released already. So they're never normally my favorite. So at the moment, Wallflower and Don't Care are sounding great. And I think Wallflower is a song where we've tried something completely different to our normal sound. And we've done that so many times over the years, really unsuccessfully, with things that will never see the light of day. So it's nice to do that successfully with something that we're really proud of.
I want to ask you about one of the singles, Tyrannosaurus Wreck. You basically made a video for it and managed to put your frontman into a dinosaur costume, which I think was an act of genius on your part. How did you convince Kiran to get into a dinosaur costume around town?
This was well, strangely, we all had a really similar vision for the video. We were like, because the song's got a bit of humor to it, so we were like, well, okay, why don't we get someone in a dinosaur suit and but make them deadpan, make them look really sad, and essentially be that, because the lyric "I'm a Tyrannosaurus Wreck" is quite a humorous lyric. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and we thought the video should reflect that. And everyone was on board with it. And Kiran was totally on board with it and was like, yeah, I mean, that'd be a great video. I just don't think he ever saw himself as being the guy dressed in the Tyrannosaurus Rex suit. But with a few gentle nudges from us, we convinced him that it should be him. And really, really, he was such a good sport, and he did such a great job. And I think he didn't have to act, because he really was just pretty gutted about having to be marched around a town in Somerset dressed as a dinosaur, and it was really hot as well, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was like
boiling.
It was like 25 degrees or something.
Yeah, I think what you just said about him not having to act, because he was even though he was willing to do it, he wasn't happy about it, and I think that probably added to the video, and it comes across in the video that he's just
gutted.
It's sad. Yeah, it works with the music, I think.
But it was, I think with as far as music videos go, it's an interesting one, because we make most of them together. I mean, that one was, we was just me, you, and just
three of us,
because Alex was finishing off all of the artwork and stuff. He had an insane amount of stuff to do with his record, in terms of the art. So we just went to charge, just the three of us. And I think me and you, I think we work quite well together when we're making a music video, because you know all of the technical stuff and know how to actually get the end result. And I know absolutely nothing technically, not a clue. I could not work a camera, but I think I have quite a good eye for how it needs to feel or be or anything like that. So I think together we, I'm a rock, and I'm like the rock, just over a hammer. And you're like the fountain. That's a weird.
Yeah, we'll take that. Yeah,
we'll take that.
I think because when you, I don't know, maybe when you make when you're filming, well, for me, maybe it's different for people who are better at it, because I don't think it's not our we're musicians that can kind of get by with a camera, and so I have to really concentrate on the camera, and I'm looking at the camera, I'm making sure all the settings are right and the light's right and all that kind of stuff, whereas I feel like you can then be the zoom out and see whether, because in the video there's a guy that cycles past. I don't know if you've seen it's in the first verse, this kid cycles past and Kiwi and him sort of look at each other, and then he moves on, and he came past originally and swore at the camera, but I didn't even see it on the camera. And then we spoke to him and then got him in to do that part. Yeah, just stuff like that. That really adds to the video. Probably wouldn't be there if it was just me filming it on my own. So really.
I ran down the road after him.
Yeah,
I think he thought I was gonna have a go at him, and I just ran up to him and just said, "Do you want to be in a music video?" And he was like, "Yeah." So I was like, "Right, what you just did, just go and do that same thing again." And it is little moments like that. I think having the non-technical aspect and then the technical aspect works well together. The only difference between the two is that if you were working on your own, you'd still come out with a music video, whereas if I was working on my own, I wouldn't come out with anything.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, you do some videos, right? So you do have a YouTube channel that I was watching.
I did. I haven't made anything in a while, but yeah, that was cool. I mean, I think the reason I stopped was because I just felt it was like, I don't know, maybe you have a creative battery, and I felt like I was draining it all on that, and then I couldn't, I felt like I just wasn't really in it with the band, and I wasn't able to like think of ideas for, like, not musically, but like the trouble is with being in a band now, or like an independent band, is that you, like we just said, we do all the videos, Alex does the artwork, you have to kind of come up with all the ideas for content to market the band, which is great because it's you're way more direct with your fans than you would have been, say, 20 years ago, where a label did everything for you and you just played gigs. Where am I going with this? I've forgotten.
But it gives you a creative.
Yeah. So you have all this, you have all that stuff to think about, that when I was then doing the YouTube as well, I just wasn't able to think about it, and I was more focused. And also, I don't think it was great for you, because every day I'd be loading my phone up, looking like, how many views did that video get? How many views did that get? And then, I think I was also kind of trying to leave my job to do the YouTube stuff. So it felt like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the YouTube and the band and not have to work on the side. And so it felt that every view was really important. And then when like a video tanked, it would just like crush me for the day. And I just thought, well, why am I doing this? There's no need for it. So yeah, sacked it in.
Fair play. They're obviously still up on YouTube and very enjoyable. So right, after we get through these in-store signings that you're currently doing, you have a tour, a UK tour, kicks off on the 25th of October, kicks off in Bristol. You're going right across the UK. You're playing some amazing venues, and that tour culminates in the UK anyway, with the biggest London gig to date, right? You're going to the Scala. Amazing.
We are.
That's awesome.
It's one, I mean, we always used to drive past the Scala on the way to play like a horrific show in London to no. So it's going to be really refreshing to turn up to Scala and be playing that venue. Yeah, we're headlining it, and it's sold really well. Like we're really we're blown away with how many tickets we've sold.
Yeah.
So
even when we first put it on sale, and like they just went really quickly. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, it'll be a good feeling, and as well, it's at the end of the tour, because the set will be good by then. Like it's always good, but it'll be good, really good. So it'll be nice to have that show as the culmination. And Scala, it was quite an intimidating one for us to put on sale. It wasn't our first choice of venue. We were like, we didn't think we were big enough to do Scala. We were like, we're going to be playing to like 300 people in like this 800 cap venue. So it was actually the team around us, our management and publisher and things that pushed us to do that show. And we're really glad they did, because it's already, what are we? We're 6 weeks out from the show, and I think like we're already in an incredible position.
So that is the UK tour, I'd say, wraps up in the Scala. Like you said, there's low tickets, right? So there's a few dates on the tour, which I think you've mentioned on your socials, where there are low tickets. So if anyone's listening and still hasn't got round to getting tickets, because I know what people and myself are like, sometimes you can leave it to the last minute. Don't wait, because it will be a disservice to yourselves if you don't get yourself down the Scala and you're planning to, because it probably looks like it will sell out. And then after the Scala, right, then you're off to Europe to go around Europe for a little while.
Yeah, and it's our first ever European headline tour, which we are really excited about, because we've been lucky enough to have quite a few great support opportunities in Europe with like Editors, Archive, We Are Scientists, Slow Readers, and It's this year. But to go there and do it as an extensive European tour as we are, we're buzzing, and we're also really surprised with how well it's sold. Like particularly in like Holland, in the Netherlands, and in Germany, they've sold really well. So we're just buzzing that people that far away want to come see our band.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. I'm sure that tour will go down massively well. So I guess, gents, in terms of kind of your musical tasting and what you're listening to, I mean, I'm listening to your album. I'm listening to Shed 7, who I had on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Moonlight Parade, I'm still listening to. Jesse Marlin. What are you guys listening to? So, Dan, I'll ask you first. When you're in that tour van that's getting you from A to B just about, what's on and what are you listening to? What are you enjoying at the moment?
I've been really liking the Fontaine's DC record. I've played that way too much. Yeah, like absolutely smashing that. And to be fair, my girlfriend got really into Brat over the summer, as probably like everyone did. And I listened to that loads, and actually I really, really liked it. I thought it was just like, I don't know what it reminded me of. It reminded me of like that kind of mid 2000s like stuff from the mid 2000s that I don't know, just maybe wasn't even that cool at the time, but just for some reason when it came back, it really worked, and I loved like all the imagery around it and stuff. I just thought it was really clever.
Oh, yeah, great shout. Yeah, two great albums there. What about yourself, Chris? What are you listening to at the moment?
I mean, the one that I've really caned is Fontaines as well. Really, really impressed with that record. I think like for a band like that, to particularly with the whole change of imagery around the album as well, and such an extreme change of imagery, I think they took a massive risk with that, because particularly with how out there it is, if they didn't have the album to back up the image change, I could have seen it going really badly for them. But the fact that the album and the songs that they've released are just so good that it just makes the whole thing look like the coolest thing in the world. Like, I think they might be the coolest band on the planet at the moment. So yeah, like those, I've really, really been caning that record. And I think as well, which has been out for a couple months now, but the Big Special record is really good. I think obviously punk is still huge in guitar music at the moment. And I think the best new punk bands now, because obviously bands like Sleaford Mods, Soft Play, Idols that have come in, and Fontaines, I suppose, in a slightly different angle, they've become so big a British punk band, and then someone like Big Special comes along and they yet again kind of reinvent punk, and they've done it in a way. I think it's his voice. I think it's the fact that he can sing with the punk. Like, it's almost like he goes into these bluesy kind of.
It's almost a bit Rag and Bone Man at times, isn't it?
Yeah, like I hope that doesn't upset them. Like, mean that in a great way. But it's almost like Rag and Bone Man mixed with like more conventional punk, and I just think it's really good and really clever.
Great shout. Great albums mentioned there, gents. So this podcast is about you collating your fantasy festivals. Guys, are you a big fan of the festival format? Have you been to many?
Yeah. Love a festival.
I always like to ask artists if they like playing festivals, because it seems like it's a bit of a whirlwind. There's tight time schedules. The sound might not be as apt as what you like it. How do you find the experience playing festivals?
I think we love it. Yeah. I mean, I love it. I think it's cool. Like, and I think sometimes it relies on who's playing at the same time, and like, what time you're on and what stage you're on and stuff. But sometimes you can have some of your best gigs there because you just get in front of like a really big new audience, which is great. And like, now that we can, now that people come to see us on the tours and stuff, a lot of people do come to see us at the festivals, but that like core crowd then seems to draw a bigger crowd as well. And then, you can pick up a load of new fans, just have a really good show.
I think as well with the live show, I love it when people see our live show for the first time, because they don't really know what to do. Because it's intense in your face. They kind of stand there just kind of looking at you, like half terrified, half like I'm not sure. So it's quite nice having that core of people who are like jumping around, loving it, know the songs, and then you have this wider one, and it's like, well, like just kind of there, like, what the hell have I just seen? Which is, I think that's great. And also, like, I mean, it can go the other way, where, I mean, as every band has, and it's interesting that you have it at any level, even massive bands still get this, is like some of the clashes at festivals can be brutal. I remember we did Tramlines in 2019, and it was with Lewis Capaldi in like peak rise of Lewis Capaldi, and he was on the main stage at the same time as us, and the whole field just cleared, didn't it?
Yeah,
the whole field cleared. So you take your good with your bad at festivals, but yeah, they're cool. They're just cool.
Absolutely. And the coolest thing is you get to collect your fantasy festival now, gentlemen, as part of this very podcast. So the aim is getting our guests to collect their fantasy festival. So the gents get to choose any 5 acts who must play one of their albums in full. and an encore, which all 5 acts can perform together to end their fantasy festival. So like I mentioned in the last episode, I had Amelia Coburn. She collated her Eclectica Fantasy Festival in our last episode. To open her fantasy festival, she had Simon and Garfunkel play their classic album, The Sound of Silence, in full. For her Super Seconds, she picked Joy Division. Midway Madness, she picked David Bowie. Pre-headliners, she picked Velvet Underground and Nico. And in her headline act that I did not see coming, she picked Frank Sinatra, and then had them all play together LA Woman to close her fantasy festival on Teesside. So great episode for anyone who hasn't listened to that. So gents, before we're going to talk about your lineup, we need to give your fantasy festival a name and a venue. So guys, what are you going to call your fantasy festival?
Do you know what? We didn't discuss the name. We looked at what we did last night, but we haven't discussed the name.
What do you want to call it?
Driss.
What's that?
Dan and Chris.
Festival DhrisFest.
DhrisFest.
Dan and Chris.
Yeah.
All right, DhrisFest. I like it. It's imaginative. It's good. I like that, Dan and Chris. So DhrisFest, you can hold it anywhere that you'd like to. You can hold it in Scala, you go to a record shop, you can go big, you can go small, all across the world. Gents, where do you want to host DhrisFest?
Where?
DhrisFest. Okay, so being as we're from Somerset, we're born and raised in Somerset, born and raised going to Glastonbury Festival. It has to be on the Glastonbury site. It can't be anywhere else. It literally can't be. Like it is built into our DNA, that festival is. So yeah, it has to be.
All right.
I was going to say the Newt Beer Fest.
No. New Beer.
Fest.
Okay, we'll put Glastonbury site, or if that's not available, the Newt Beer Fest site. And just to clarify for people what the Newt Beer Fest is, it is this kind of festival that was held, I don't know, 10 miles down the road, and half of Taunton would go there every year. And people would just get beyond obliterated there. Whilst listening to like a Queen tribute. We played it years ago. Years ago.
When we were kids, we played it.
I think we murdered "Wish You Were Here" by Floyd.
Yeah. Jimi Hendrix fun.
Yeah. So if we can't book out Glastonbury, we're going to go with the Newt Beer Fest site.
All right.
It's the New Beer Fest site. It's got a charm to it. It's just one singular white tent.
I think let's go there. I think you sold it to me, Dan and Chris. I think you sold it to me. I think you've sold it. All right, we're going to go to the New Beer Fest site. Before we talk about 5 acts, any acts who you want to give an honourable mention to, who you love, but just aren't going to make it into DhrisFest, who've said, no, we don't want to play the New Beer Fest site, we're not coming, but you want to give a shout out to who you love anyway?
Well, seeing as it's in Somerset and we love the guys, I think China Bears. Have you had China Bears on the podcast?
Yeah, they supported you, didn't they?
Yeah. We love those guys. They've just released an album. It's great. And I went last minute before we went on this tour. I had to go to theirs and get a guitar because we don't have an electric acoustic, so we were going to have to try and mic it up at all these shows, and it would have just been a nightmare because me and Kiran are basically swapping. So yeah, I sent them a message and they kindly lent us a guitar, and they're great. And I actually did a video for them the other day, like a little live session in our studio, and that came out really well. So yeah, check it out.
They were good honourable.
Yeah.
Anyone else you want to give an honourable mention before we move on to the 5, apart from China Bears?
There's so many.
There's just so many bands.
There's so many.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be able to stop if we stop. No, we'll go with China Bears.
All right, China Bears just missing out, although good honourable mention for them. All right, so it's 2:00. DhrisFest is a lovely day. The New Beer Fest site is flowing, but we are going to cap how much people can drink, right? I think we don't want to get them too obliterated, or we'll stagger the drinks out. So, gents, who are you going to have at 2:00 then to open DhrisFest?
Should we alternate?
Go on. Have you? I know I want to.
You go open it then.
Okay, so the first band and one of, I think, our most intense live experiences that we've seen is me and Dan both went to the Colston Hall years and years ago when we were young to watch Ozzy Floyd, who are the #1 Pink Floyd tribute act in the world, self-proclaimed #1 tribute act in the world. And I mean, seeing as it's our festival, they were good. They were good. Really good. They were good, like ridiculously good live. It's just got to be Ozzy Floyd, isn't it?
Ozzy Floyd, yeah.
Ozzy Floyd. It'll be a kind of intense opener, but like an intense but also strangely laid back opener with it being Floyd. But yeah, Ozzy Floyd has got to be.
Sound great in that new Beerfest tent.
All right, Ozzy Floyd are opening your fantasy festival. So not Pink Floyd, Ozzy Floyd.
We don't want Pink
want the
Floyd.
real thing.
We don't want the real thing.
No, do you know what? I think I've seen the Australian Pink Floyd. I don't know if they're the same band.
That's them.
Yeah, they were amazing. I saw Roger Waters about 2 years ago, and I much more enjoyed Ozzy Floyd than what I did Roger Waters.
No way.
That's them. That's the ones.
Yeah, all right.
I don't see how the real Pink Floyd could be better. Like they're unbelievably good.
All right, it's just the first tribute act we've had as a fantasy festival lineup. I'm loving it.
Really? First for everything. In true Newt Beerfest style.
They're back over. Funny enough, I think they're doing a UK tour in October. Australian Pink Floyd, well worth a look at. Yeah, they're fantastic. So Ozzy Floyd opening. They're going to play from 2 till 3. We're going to take a half-hour break. That'll take us to our super seconds. I think you said you're going to alternate, so I'll come to you, Dan. Who are you going to have super seconds in to follow Ozzy Floyd?
I'm going to go with following Chris's thing of to do with the band and not necessarily individual favourite acts. I'm going to go with an act that I think when you're playing as a band, there's obviously bands where you turn up to a gig and they're better than you at the start. But I feel like when we kind of got our stuff together and we played as a live band, we felt like we could hold our own. But we played this show in Norwich. The Epic Norwich. What year would that have been?
I've no idea, dude. 2015.
Before pre-October Drift anyway. And we played with King Charles. And I remember we sound checked and stuff and it was all great. And then he played the show and it was just an unbelievable live show, so good, the way he captivated the audience and stuff. I think, it was just so cool. And it was one of those moments where you stand there as a band and realise that you've got a long way to go. And I think that was maybe the first time that happened with a band that we'd played with.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it was probably our first, bigger act that we played with who were a really good live band. And it just blew us away and made us all sad but happy. Sad that we were a long way off, but also happy of how good you could be live. So I'd put him on second. All
right, great shout. First time King Charles has been picked for Fantasy Festival as well. So you're 2 for 2 in terms of new acts to our Fantasy Festival lineup. So King Charles is going to play from 3:30 till 4:30. Take a half-hour break, and that takes us to Midway Madness, which takes place from 5 till 6. So Chris, who you going to pick for Midway Madness at DhrisFest?
Okay, so we're going to have another one who we have a strange link with the band, and also I think a good midway one because it's not too intense. This is going to be slowly, gently leading people into the evening, and that is Ben Howard. So we were maybe 14 at the time, and we played a show in a village called Axminster, or a town called Axminster near where we live, and we were on a 4-band bill, and we were first on the bill, and second on the bill was Ben Howard, and he was there. No one knew who the hell he was. He was absolutely tiny, and he was insanely good. In the Axminster town hall to hardly any people sitting and having. It was part of River Cottage. Do you know the program River Cottage? Yeah. Hugh Fernley Wilkinson, the chef. It was something to do with him. And so there's all these kind of families just sitting around on tables eating River Cottage stew. And Ben Howard just delivered this insanely good set. And then I remember we were driving through London a couple years later and we just saw this massive billboard for his new album. And he was getting played all over the radio and things. And we were we played with that dude in a town hall on a 4-band bill. So Ben Howard has to be on the show.
One of my favourite ever live shows to watch was actually his first performance, maybe not his first performance ever at Glastonbury, but after the first album, the second album was coming out on the Pyramid stage, and the sun was this is probably a good slot for that. The sun was not setting, but getting towards the end of the day, and it just, I don't know, something about it. It's just and he couldn't stop smiling because there was like so many people there to see him, and yeah, just one of those moments.
Yeah, I remember that album, the big one, coming out and blowing up when I worked in HMV in the record shop. That was you couldn't really escape that album. I think it got nominated for Mercury. I think it might have even won the Mercury Prize back in the day, from what I remember. All right, Ben Howard. Again, first time Ben Howard's been picked for a fantasy festival. So another new name on the roster. So we are flying through DhrisFest. Ben's going to play from 5 till 6. Another half-hour break, and then time for your pre-headline act. So Dan, coming to you again. Who you going to have for your pre-headliners? Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, another one I saw. Like I was always, like I said earlier, from the guy who got me into like rock albums when I was a kid. He played me from my parents' shop. He played me Smashing Pumpkins, and I'd always listen to them, but not like really. I wouldn't say I was like a real fan. Were you a fan before that point?
Yeah, a guy who I used to work with got me into Smashing Pumpkins, and I remember trying to really push them on you guys and on the rest of the band, and you guys were all like, "This guy's got a weird voice, like this sound really strange." And then you all saw him at Glastonbury in 2013, and were like, "They're the best band ever."
Yeah, 2013. The rest of them, and they had like an 18-year-old kid on drums who was so just good. Like ridiculously good. And they were just brilliant, and like it, just something about, they were just another band where you think again. I mean, this was years later, and you think, oh yeah, they're just so good, unbelievably.
All right.
So I'd have them pre-headline.
Great shout. Not the first time they've been picked, only the fourth though. So they are going to be your pre-headliners. Imagine seeing them in the new BFS site, right? That'd be unbelievable. You'd be loving life there. So they'll play an hour and a half, be an amazing set. One more half-hour break. Then it'll be time for your headliners to take the stage. You're going to get 2.5 hours. So Dan, Chris, an amazing first 4 acts. Who are going to be the act, though, to headline your fantasy festival?
Who you got in mind? I got someone in mind. Who you got in mind?
I've got the National.
Yeah, all right, let's go with that.
We can go double because there's 2 of you. I'm happy to have like a double headliner.
Double headliner. Okay, I was gonna say the National. I think the National's a better shout. The National are like, so as a band, that was another one that got introduced to us by Phil, our record shop guy, and it's the first time I think we've ever heard a band and gone, this is the band that we want to be. Wow. Like we want to be this band, and then I think for years later we just tried to be that band, and we were maybe the only 18-year-old. Yeah, like no one really knew who they were. If we ever showed the National to any of our friends, they'd be like, I don't get this, like, because everyone was into dubstep or something, so no one really wanted to listen to the National as an 18-year-old kid from Somerset. But they're just I think the band that have had the biggest influence on us collectively as a group, so it has to be them.
I remember like the first time I heard them, Kiran bought it. He bought it was High Violet, so it would have been 2009, 2010, and he put it on. He had like this really old record player thing, and it didn't sound great, but he put it on, and that record still sounded great on that terrible record player. And yeah, what Chris said about how like it was like the band we wanted to be. To me, it sounded like the band I'd always wanted to hear but didn't know existed, and then suddenly they existed. I think it's like the blend of like the songs were almost like, to me anyway, I mean to everyone else, to other people who don't love the National, they probably don't sound like this, but to me they were like, they towed the line between like really amazing melodies and could be like, we'll use like dark pop band, but then also it was like left field enough that it had the instrumentation, like cool instrumentation, and just sounded a bit alternative. And that it was like the perfect line, and I think that's what we strove for with our own music.
All right, so I think the National, no co-headlining, we're just going to go straight for the National.
Straight for the National.
Maybe could we do another honourable mention?
Of course you can. You guys are legends. Do what you want, mate. It's fine.
Yeah, I think Biffy Clyro could have been in there as well as headline, because they were another band that we all, but there's been a weird connection with them as well, that we all went and saw them years ago when we were young, and they were probably the first band. Obviously we didn't play with them, but they were the first band that like really blew me away in terms of, I actually saw them too early, I think, because I saw them and then I remember going to festivals and every other band that I saw live just wasn't as good as them. And it like, I don't know, maybe they they like blew my mind
They
too
ruined
early, and then everyone else just didn't ever sound quite as good and didn't have the same intensity.
Well, why don't we choose a Biffy song for them all to play?
It's a good shout. Good shout. All right, so 11 o'clock, the National bring out Smashing Pumpkins, Ben Howard, King Charles, Ozzy Floyd. They get to play a Biffy Clyro song then, gents, of your choice. What Biffy song are you going to have them play?
I know. Liberate the Illiterate.
All right, yeah.
Liberate the Illiterate.
Yeah, from Vertigo of Bliss.
Me and Dan used to listen to that one song on repeat and just stop, just go, God, the guitars sound so gnarly but so good, and so it's Liberate the Illiterate. That's the song.
I'm pretty sure they recorded that album in like 24 hours.
Yeah, I think they did. So bad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. Great band. Great choice. All right, so gents, let's lock your fantasy festival in. We have got DhrisFest taking place at the new Beer Fest site. We have got the Australian Pink Floyd opening, King Charles as your super second. We've got Ben Howard as your Midway Madness act, Smashing Pumpkins following as your pre-headliners, and the National headlining your fantasy festival. And all 5 acts are going to play Liberate the Illiterate as your encore. Gents, sounds amazing to me. Are you happy to lock that one into the Fantastival vaults?
Let's lock it in.
Do it, yeah.
It's amazing.
Let's do it.
That's much better than Kiran's, but don't tell Kiran. That's fine. That's all. So, gents, before we wrap this up then, obviously, we've mentioned the tour. The album is out. People can go and buy it. I guess, what does things look like beyond the tour, or you're not at that point yet?
So we have plans for next year. With all of the next year's touring is starting to get booked in now. We are hoping for a really good festival season. Should be our best festival season yet, which is great. And yeah, I mean, you know us, we just want to absolutely tour the shit out of this record.
I think I've mentioned it before various times on this podcast. I don't need to say it again, but October Drift are definitely one of the best live bands and one of the best live experiences you can have. Gents, when I had Kiran on and the second album was about to drop, he said he was already focused on the third album. Obviously, the third album, like you've mentioned, was 18 months ago. Are you already thinking about album 4, or is it far too early to even talk about album 4?
Yeah, we've been talking about it loads in the band. A lot of ideas, yeah.
We've got some stuff demoed already, haven't we? And
Wow.
we might in January, because we're not going to be doing anything gigging wise. I think we might go and do like a little writing session or something somewhere and just get away for a little bit and do something cool.
But we have quite a few songs already written that we're really happy with. So yeah, the relentless life of being in October Drift will continue. Pretty much when we get back from tour.
All right, I love that. So remind us then, how do people find you on social media? Where do people go to find October Drift? And let's give your Patreon a shout as well, right? Because you're on Patreon as well.
Yeah. So we are at October Drift on pretty much everything: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, which is
October Drift Music.
I can't remember. Is it October Drift Music?
Yeah.
TikTok, if you want to see all of that. We have our Patreon page, which is Patreon.com/October Drift, where which has been really, really fun. We all of the stuff, we have an insane amount of unreleased material, demos, because before the song that you hear, it's probably had 5 or 6 different versions or before, and we have this Patreon where we can share all of that stuff with our fans in a way that we would never see the light of day. So like this week we're going to be putting out some versions of album tracks which are like maybe the first voice note of that song, and just show people the building blocks as to how all those things came about. We run giveaways from there as well, and we do a monthly live stream, and it's just a really nice way to show people a little bit more of us as people, as personalities, and how the whole kind of framework of songwriting and October Drift works, really. So yeah, if you want to join that, I think for the price of a pint a month, probably less than the price of a pint a month, you can have all of that. So yeah, where else can you find it? And on YouTube, obviously, go and have a look at Kiran marching around Chard in a dinosaur suit.
And Spotify.
All
the streaming stuff.
Yeah.
Stream the album. That would help us.
And you can also buy the physical album, right? So the album is available on CD, it's available on vinyl, just head to the website and most retailers. And like I did last night, I went to Banquet and there was still a few signed copies left. So you can buy that from various retailers.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely.
All right, great way to leave it. So that is it, everyone. Thank you for listening to the 174th episode of the Fantastival Podcast. And if you've enjoyed this, please don't forget to subscribe, give the Fantastival Podcast a review. You can do that on iTunes. You can also now follow podcasts on Twitter and rate shows on Twitter. So please make sure to do that. Not on Twitter, what am I talking about? On Spotify. So please make sure you do that and recommend the podcast to all your families and friends. I got so close without making any errors. We are also on Twitter as our October Drift. So give us a follow at Fantastival P. The pod's also on TikTok. And if you're not on either, give us an email at fantastivalpodcast@outlook.com, as we'd love to hear from you. Unfortunately, we don't play music on the podcast, but I'll try and get some tracks from Chris and Dan, and we'll make a nice little Spotify playlist of their chosen acts. So gentlemen, I'm so delighted to have another two members of October Drift on the podcast. You've been everything I dreamed that you would be and more, from a hotel room where the Wi-Fi is just about held out. How have you enjoyed your Fantastival podcast experience?
It's been great.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's been really good. This period of time as well is always, you never know what to do with yourself, so you just keep wandering down to the services and getting coffee. So this is an infinitely better way to spend our morning. So thank you.
Saved my bank balance too.
Amazing, gents. I look forward to seeing you at the Scala. I'm so excited about that. It's going to be a complete celebration of the Drift as we speak. So I'll be back next week with episode number 175. So please make sure to join me for that one. But until then, stay safe, my Fantastival friends. Please continue to spread the word. And that word is Fantastival. Thanks for listening.